to take in your class when I was in college. Yesterday, Jaden Daniels was named the starter of the Washington Commanders, and he has the second highest odds to win the Rookie of the Year, according to ESPN Bet. Now, he's behind Caleb Williams, in front of Marvin Harrison. So the two quarterbacks top this list. But let's go to Tom Brady and listen to what he had to say to our very own Stephen A. about all of these young quarterbacks being pushed out under center in their first year.
I think it's just a tragedy that we're forcing these rookies to play early. But the reality is the only reason why they are is because we dumbed the game down, which has allowed them to play. It used to be thought of at a higher level. We used to spend hours and hours in the offseason and training camp trying to be a little bit better than next year. But I think what happens is it discourages the coaches from going to deep levels because they realize the players don't have the opportunity to go to a deep level, so they're just going to teach them where they're at.
You can see Tom Brady is analyzing this from the perch he sits on as the greatest quarterback of all time. Tim, are we starting rookies too early?
No, we're starting rookies because they're the most talented players, and coaches that are going to get fired if they don't win enough games are staring at their rosters and saying, I need to play the most talented guy, otherwise I'm going to be out of here looking for a job. Like that, I mean, that's why we're playing rookies early. And you know, this idea, I think that like we're dumbing the game down, and maybe Tom's referring to, you know, lack of time in the off season. I don't know that it's accurate. Like I just, listen, I know he's the greatest of all time, but like I don't believe that's accurate. And if you look back to when Tom first started playing, look, they were a run-first football team. It was not a very sophisticated passing game. In fact, they call 70 Hopek hinge probably 10 times every football game. Like, just the reality, I'm just being real. Like that's what happened. Now, did the passing game develop? Did he get better at the line of scrimmage? Absolutely. He and Peyton Manning and Drew Brees, guys like that, absolutely did. But it did not start off that way.
Jeff, why are you shaking your head?
Nah, I don't know, man. It just has "get off my lawn" vibes written all over it. Like, there were plenty of quarterbacks when Tom came into the league. Honestly, even Tom Brady himself, he would have started his rookie year if not for the fact that he was fourth on the depth chart and worked his way up, and Drew Bledsoe was playing really good football. It's all situational. Like, I think it's a little insulting to say the game is dumbed down when Patrick Mahomes is doing otherworldly things, both with his mind and with his legs. Like, this is not a scenario where all of a sudden everybody's stupid and the game is terrible. I just disagree with that. Look, Peyton Manning was forced in as a rookie to play, worked out just fine. He struggled his rookie year, but he worked out just fine. Ben Roethlisberger, because of an injury, ended up starting his rookie year, and that worked out just fine. Look, this has been something that has been in existence for much longer, even when Tom was playing. Dan Marino was unbelievable as a rookie. Guys have been thrown into the fire. It's just situational. I just don't love this take.
Neek, what do you think?
I mean, I appreciate Tom for saying interesting things, I guess, but I feel like the further you get away from the past, all the dumb quarterbacks you forget about. Like the idea that all the quarterbacks in football back in the early 2000s were smart is absurd. I caught me a couple interceptions because there are plenty of dumb quarterbacks out there. So yeah, the guys that you named, Dak Prescott's another name comes to mind, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, they're making decisions at the line of scrimmage. They understand the complexity of the game. Of course, there are plenty of young quarterbacks who the game is simplified for, to the point that's already been made a couple times, the same way it was simplified for Tom Brady when he was a young quarterback. I hope we don't discourage him from saying interesting things, but he got to work a little harder because even though he's the GOAT, this seems so damn wrong.
I don't even think it's about being wrong. I just think it's unfair to sort of say that everybody has to follow your path because of where your career ended up. Patrick Mahomes would have played. There's so many quarterbacks, and it's all about being situational. And so to me, when I look at what Tom is saying, I do believe there are some quarterbacks that come into the league and should have opportunities to sit and watch better quarterbacks play. If you don't walk into that situation, if you aren't drafted into that situation, sometimes you're supposed to learn under fire. And I believe that these young dudes, Caleb, Caleb, Jaden, and Bo Nix will have an opportunity to do that as they lead their teams in their first years in the NFL. But it is time to sound off. And this is just interesting people saying extremely interesting things. Tua Tagovailoa was asked about the biggest difference between Mike McDaniel, who coaches him now, and Brian Flores, who was the old coach. And bruh, Tua did not hold back.
To put it in simplest terms, if you woke up every morning and I told you you suck at what you did, that you don't belong doing what you do, that you shouldn't be here, that this guy should be here, that you haven't earned this right, and then you have somebody else come in and tell you, dude, you are the best fit for this. Like, you are accurate. How would it make you feel listening to one or the other? And you hear it more and more, you start to actually believe that. Basically been, 2 years of training that out of not just me, but, a couple of the guys as well that have been here since my rookie year.
I mean, that was real. Tua was straight up about what Brian Flores and his relationship was like. Jeff, you're close to the Miami Dolphins. What can you tell us about that relationship?
Well, make no mistake, the things that he is alluding to there are actual things that happened. When he's talking about going out and getting someone else, he's talking about Deshaun Watson and Brian Flores' flirtations with that quarterback. When he's talking about being told that he sucks, those are real things that happened via text message from Flores to Tua. These are all things that happened. And by the way, these are all things I had reported at the time led to Brian Flores firing. The relationship between Tua Tagovailoa and Brian Flores and the deterioration of it is precisely the reason Flores was no longer the coach after that year. Stephen Ross made it very clear to Tua after that happened. We're going to make this better for you. We did not do good things for you by having Brian Flores as your coach, and we're going to go in a different direction. Now, there's two things I want to point out here that are interesting. First of which is the fact that Tua is even willing to go here now. That feels almost like some sort of revelation in his personal spirit that he's willing to now say the things that he's kind of kept inside. That shows you the way that he is empowered. The second thing I would say here is that just to kind of not just make Brian Flores out to be some terrible human, but just to point out that some coaches don't do the best thing for certain players. Bill Belichick perhaps motivated Tom Brady despite the deterioration of their relationship in a way that got the best out of Tom Brady. Very clearly, and this is where the coaching malpractice comes into play for Brian Flores, what he was doing for Tua did not work and was a failed effort in coaching. That, to me, is the biggest malpractice here. That the leadership that he had over Tua was not good.
Tim, you gave some interesting perspective on why Brian Flores would have coached this way in our morning meeting. Can you share that with everybody watching?
Well, I do think, RC, and you know this, you've been coached hard by defensive coaches. Sometimes guys, get on you, and they coach all positions kind of the same, and they're not the same. I think the thing that strikes me the most, and Ryan, having been teammates with you, I know you've experienced it. I know that I've experienced it. The reality is, there's a difference between being coached hard, a coach trying to push you, and then, being a guy that leaves the facility thinking, my coach doesn't believe in me. That guy doesn't think I can do it. And then having an experience with a coach that you leave the facility thinking, this guy thinks I'm a good player. This guy thinks he can win with me. That to me is, I think, the thing that at least is hitting a nerve for me, when I hear Tua say that. And I think that some of it might just be with Brian Flores being at the time, a first-time head coach. And maybe not handling things the way that you probably need to handle things with the players on your roster.
Neek, when you hear Tua Tagovailoa's comments, what are your first thoughts?
Yeah, I think some of the things that he said he heard were kind of ridiculous. I think we're chalking some of it up to being coached hard, but there's a difference, I think, for being coached hard to being told that you don't deserve to be here and you're not good enough and we're trying to replace you. That doesn't sound like hard coaching to me. I think the point that Tim was just making is an important one, and is that the hard coaching is like, I know that you can do better. This, what you're doing here, is garbage. This is not who you are. That's different than holding someone to a standard is very different. And of course, Brian Flores hasn't spoken on this, so we're only hearing one side of the story. But if he was actually saying the things that Tua said, he said verbatim, well, I guess also Jeff's talking about things that he reported. Those things seem unacceptable. Sending people text messages like "Don't blow this," which I guess in context may sound a little different, but that sounds crazy. I've been coached hard. I've been dog cussed by coaches, all types of stuff, but no one ever said the night before a game, "Hey, don't blow this." Like that's just not something that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're Brian Flores, at some point you got to make an adjustment, though. Like Jeff said, if it's not working, if our relationship isn't getting better, if I'm not getting the best out of Tua Tagovailoa, and I know my contract and I know my career is tied to this quarterback, I want him to play well. And it's not like Tua Tagovailoa never played for a coach that coaches hard. This is a dude that was inserted into the game at halftime in the national championship as a freshman. He throws an interception. He's walking over to Nick Saban, who everybody knows will slap dog cuss you. He puts his arm around him after throwing the interception and says, "Hey, coach, it's going to be all right." And he's watched Nick Saban get on some of the best players that are now Hall of Famers or future Hall of Famers, some of the guys that are all pros, and he understood how to deal with that because they had a relationship.
That video from, the national championship game, and Tua's response, like, you're exactly right. Like, I think that, like, I really do think that, Brian Flores was a first-time head coach. There was all this talk about, needing other quarterbacks, other guys to do it. And, look, I think, all of us, here, like guys have always been coached hard. We've always had a coach raise his voice at you. I just think, like, what's different is if it's like, hey, this guy actually doesn't think I can do it. Like, that's what, like, I feel like, is the situation with Tua, is that no one in Miami believed in me. They didn't think I was any good. And then all of a sudden you got this coach that's got a little bit of a unique approach. And it's like, man, not only does he believe in me, but he's telling me I'm perfect for what we're doing here. Like, that just, listen, that's powerful. That's a powerful way to coach.
Get in here, Jeff.
I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but it goes back to the idea that, by the way, Brian Flores learned under Bill Belichick. He was in New England for all that time. And there were times when Tom Brady surely left the Patriots facility and felt, man, Bill Belichick doesn't believe in me. And that fired him up. And that's, I think, the point here is that some people can take that type of criticism and use it as like this sort of blood-boiling revenge factor and go in and be even better. That was not Tua. Tua, at one point during that season, did not even want to be at the team's facility. That's how beaten down he felt. He did not want to have interactions with this person because he just, it made his skin crawl inside. So that's where I find issue with this. It is not necessarily Brian Flores coaching hard. Bill Belichick did that. It is the idea that it didn't work and Brian Flores could not recognize that it wasn't working with Tua Tagovailoa.
Dom, how much of this, because we've been with different coaches, how much of this is just the coach's natural personality, and how incumbent is it on them to change that if it's not working for you and a young quarterback?
It's your job. You said it earlier. Your job depends on it. If you are running a play consistently that doesn't work, if you have an offense that doesn't work, it's a lot easier to change the offense than go find a new quarterback. If you are using a coaching strategy or style that you've seen work in the past, but it's not working right now, it's incumbent on you to figure out how to fix it or change it. And it's incumbent on the player to do their best to make that situation work, because the best for everyone is to have success. But I do think that if you're trying something that keeps failing, you got to figure something else out. And it seems pretty clear that the way that he was coaching Tua, because we've seen Tua have success in college, and we've seen Tua have success after Brian Flores. The issue in between was this team, the system, the coaching that they had in the middle. That's what didn't work. That was the outlier in Tua's career, not what he's doing now.
Tim, you heard Dom talk about coaching. How much of Tua's success is the actual X's and O's from Mike McDaniel?
I think it's real. Look, I think that you can look around the league, you look at certain play callers that I think do a good job of making things easy on the quarterback. Andy Reid's done it. Kyle Shanahan's done it. Mike McDaniel, Sean McVay. Like, there are certain guys, that do a really good job, creating a quarterback friendly environment because of the detail that they coach with, at the guys surrounding the quarterback and the rules that they define for the quarterback. So, yeah, look, I think the offense is better. I think that's part of this too. I think Mike McDaniel and his coaching staff have done a better job coaching offense, and they probably have better players than Brian Flores had, on the offensive side when he was coaching the Dolphins.
Yeah, I think all of that comes into play. It is the personal relationship and how you deal with the player each and every day. But it also helps when I have Tyreek Hill and I have Jalen Waddle and I have this really play-action friendly offense that gets the football out of my hand. I think all of those things play a part. And one thing you said, Jeff, was this is a part of Tua's evolution that he can now say something like this. It's also a part of being extremely rich. He got the bag now. So now Tua Tagovailoa can lead this locker room and also this team in a very different way.